April 29th, 1945. A Sunday morning. The sky was gray. The air was cold. The soldiers of the U.S. 45th Infantry Division, the Thunderbirds, were pushing toward a large complex near Munich. They believed they were attacking a supply depot, maybe a factory. They had no idea they were walking into the nightmare of the century. What happened next would haunt American soldiers for the rest of their lives. They reached a railroad track outside the complex. There was a train sitting there. 39 cattle cars, silent, motionless. The soldiers approached the train. They smelled it before they saw it. A lieutenant peeked inside one of the cars, and he screamed. Inside the train were bodies, thousands of them. Men, women, children. Starved, beaten, stacked on top of each other like garbage. They had been left there to die of thirst and exposure. Some of the bodies had bite marks. The living had tried to eat the dead to survive. The American soldiers were veterans. They had fought in Italy. They had fought in France. They had seen friends blown apart. But they had never seen this. One soldier, a tough 19-year-old from Oklahoma, sat down in the snow and began crying uncontrollably. Another soldier vomited. But for most of them, the sadness quickly turned into something else. Rage. A cold, shaking, murderous rage. They looked at the SS watchtowers in the distance. They tightened their grip on their rifles. And in that moment, the rules of war evaporated. The Geneva Convention didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was revenge. This is the true story of the Dachau Liberation Reprisals. The day American soldiers snapped. The day they lined up SS guards against a wall. And the day General Patton decided that sometimes murder is justice. If you're watching from the United States, this is a story rarely taught in schools. The men of the 45th Infantry Division were not murderers. They were farm boys, factory workers, students. They were the liberators. Before April 29th, they had a reputation for professionalism. They took prisoners. They treated the wounded. But Dachau changed them in an instant. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks was the commander on the ground. He tried to keep control. "Keep moving. Don't look at the train," he shouted. But you couldn't not look. There were 2,300 bodies on that train. The soldiers walked past them. They saw the eyes of the dead staring back. They saw skeletons. Private John Lee later said, "We were mad. We were so mad we wanted to kill every German in the world." They reached the main gate of the camp. The SS guards were still there. The commandant, Martin Weiss, had fled, but he left behind a young lieutenant named Heinrich Wicker and about 500 SS men. Wicker knew the war was over. He wanted to surrender. He put on his best uniform, polished his boots, walked out carrying a white flag. He expected respect. "I surrender this camp to the United States Army," he said. An American officer looked at the clean, well-fed Nazi. Then he looked at the pile of starving corpses behind him. He spit in the German's face. The surrender did not go as planned. The Americans entered the camp. Chaos exploded. 30,000 skeletal prisoners rushed the fences, screaming, crying, "Americans! Americans!" But while the prisoners celebrated, the soldiers were hunting. Near a coal yard, a group of SS guards tried to surrender. "Hitler kaputt," they shouted. They believed the words would save them. They were wrong. Lieutenant Jack Bushyhead, a Native American officer, was watching. He had just seen the crematorium. The ovens still warm, ash everywhere. He didn't give a verbal order. He simply gestured. Line them up. 50 SS men stood against a brick wall. One shouted, "Geneva Convention." The machine gunner, nicknamed Bird Eye, set up his .30 caliber machine gun. Metal clicked. The lieutenant nodded. 10 seconds of sustained fire. When the smoke cleared, the SS guards were dead. Snow turned black with coal dust and red with blood. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks ran in. He fired his pistol into the air. "Stop it," he screamed. The gunner was crying. "They deserved it," he said. It wasn't the only incident. At Tower B, SS guards climbed down with their hands up. The Americans shot them off the ladder. Their bodies fell into the moat. The Americans emptied their magazines into the water to be sure. One GI later wrote home, "It wasn't war, it was an execution, and I didn't feel a thing." The prisoners wanted their turn. They dragged an SS guard from a tower. They beat him with shovels and bare hands. An officer asked, "Should we stop them?" A sergeant replied, "No, let them finish." Another collaborator was drowned in a latrine. For 1 hour, Dachau became lawless. Victims became judges and executioners. Eventually, Sparks restored order. The surviving Germans were locked up for their own protection. Photos were taken. Photos of executed SS guards. Photos of the coal yard. An investigation followed. The report recommended court-martials. It landed on General Patton's desk. Patton read it. Then he studied the photos of the death train. "What is this garbage?" he said. "War crimes? You see 2,000 dead bodies and expect my boys to follow the rulebook?" He refused to sign the charges. The report was buried. Eisenhower agreed. The investigation was quashed. No one was tried. The Dachau reprisals remain controversial. Extremists point to them and say the Americans were just as bad. Historians disagree. This was not genocide. It was a human breaking point. When confronted with absolute evil, discipline collapsed. The SS guards were buried in unmarked graves. History forgot them. The victims are remembered. At Dachau today, a memorial stands for the 30,000 who died. The American soldiers carried the memory for the rest of their lives. One veteran later said, "I know killing prisoners is wrong, but that day, at that place, it felt like the only right thing to do." If you had seen the death train, would you have pulled the trigger? Be honest. Let me know in the comments. And if you want another untold World War II story, click the video on the screen. Thanks for watching.